Hello everyone, this is Dove, and this is a video of the speech that I wrote and gave last night at the Friday night Shabbat services on August 9th of this year. And this is about what I learned on my month in Jerusalem that all of you so kindly donated to send me on. So I wanted to go ahead and just make a video of the speech for those of you that were not able to make it out to the service last night. I know some of you had sent me an email wanting me to live stream, which I wasn't able to do, so I thought I'd make this video and email the link out to the entire memberships so those that want to hear it can hear it. So I'll go ahead and get into the speech side of this now and talk about a little about what I learned on my trip to Israel. So tonight is the beginning of the Jewish holiday Tisha B'Av, which is the anniversary and commemoration of the destruction of the first and the second temple, among other things that caused our people destruction throughout time. So the yeshiva courses that I took, they spoke to the teachings about this day and what they can mean to us as Jews and what the rabbis really had to say about the writings that are traditionally read preceding this holiday, during and after the holiday, if you can call it a holiday. So you all may be wondering why I decided to talk about my trip on the night before one of the most solemn days in the Jewish calendar. Didn't I have any fun? Of course, it was a fun trip, but the main purpose for me was to experience serious text study. I was able to do just that, and my favorite class was taught by Sarah Tova Brody, a teacher from the Schechter Institute, the conservative movement's rabbinical school in Jerusalem. The class was on Midrash Pesikta de Rav Kahana, chapters 13 through 16, and chapter 19. These midrashim, biblical interpretations of the rabbis, address the content found in the Haftorot we read before and after Tisha B'Av, along with Echa, the Book of Lamentations. The first 3 weeks before the 9th of Av, we read what is known as the Haftorot of Calamity. After the 9th, we read the Haftorot of Consolation, the preceding describing the actions that led to the destruction of the temple, and the latter describing how we as a people mourned, found comfort, and rebuilt Judaism into what we know and love today. You may be wondering what this day, the 9th of Av, is supposed to mean to you. If anything, how is the temple, or its destruction for that matter, connected to me? Why should I even spend my time thinking about it? I would never sacrifice an animal to a god I may or may not believe in. These are all very good questions, but I invite you to take a moment and think beyond the sacrifices and look into yourself and think about your own spiritual journey. Think back to a time when you have experienced what you might call a spiritual moment or feeling. Maybe this is a never or not yet moment, and that's okay too, but just imagine what that might look like if you were to have one. What you might imagine this feeling might be like. Would it be a feeling of complete peace and happiness, even just for a moment? Take a moment now and close your eyes and just think about what this kind of a moment might look like for you. We pray and sing and come to shul and make communities because we are all seeking something. Could it be a great moment with cherished friends, a feeling of accomplishment from finishing a big project, or even a meaningful prayer experience that just leaves you feeling better as you walk out these doors and back to your cars? These are all spiritual experiences. I would argue that this feeling we feel is the temple. We no longer have to bring sacrifices to experience these things. Through our prayer, community involvement, and our bond as Jews, we have communion with God. I think the temple was and is that communion with God, and a way to represent the spiritual moment that we are all seeking. Think of Tisha B'Av as a day to mourn the times we don't have that feeling in our lives and begin to see afterward through the imagery of the Haftarot how we can work through that pain or sadness or whatever those feelings are that we are leaving behind and prepare ourselves for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. As I was taking this class and learning about how the Jews sinned again and again, they lost everything. Then they were consoled by God and began to rebuild the community while in the diaspora. The themes of the story in general are loss, mourning, and rebuilding. And these themes made me think about our community. I spend a lot of time looking at the pictures on the walls in the hallways and hearing the wonderful stories about the days when this community was in its prime and this room was filled on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. Stories of the temple down the street having plenty of members and a strong sense of community that was thriving as well. As kids went to school and moved away, the communities began to shrink. Then they both reached a critical point and needed to make a change, and a new community was born, Congregation Kol Ami. The previous communities, however, did not cease to exist. They were very much alive within the people, each having their own traditions they wanted brought to the new community they were building. So they brought in a new rabbi, Rabbi Oren, to help bring those two communities together. And together we have done an amazing job. We have become an open, welcoming community where both traditions of the previous two communities are upheld with the utmost respect, and new traditions that are uniquely all of ours are emerging at every turn. All of that being wonderful, I question, did those who came to CKA from one of the previous communities have time to really mourn their unique community's loss? Because let's face it, it was a loss, even if the result is the wonderful community we have together today. How can those who need to find comfort even in loss? Everything is changing all the time in this place, and usually it's for the betterment of the community, but that can still be hard. Adapting to the new ways for some people who felt very invested in the way things used to be done and meant a lot to can be difficult. I really like to go see different shuls while I'm traveling, and some of my favorite have been Romemu in Manhattan, Nava Tehillah in Jerusalem, Congregation Beth Shalom Chevra Shas in Syracuse, and this really cool Moroccan Breslov shul that I found on my trip to Jerusalem. The one thing these all have in common was great music or singing, but especially a feeling that you had been there a million times before, even though this was your first time attending. Romemu and Nava Tehillah attract newcomers on a weekly basis. They are in New York City and Jerusalem and have the populations to work from, but this is still impressive. Whatever they are doing is causing people to seek them out. We are doing the same thing in our Friday night services. Our rabbi has made sure that we are literally on the cutting edge of Jewish melody, song, and style that seems to be attracting so many people to these flagship shuls I have mentioned. If you haven't been to one of these services, I encourage you to come check it out because it will feel like you're sitting in a synagogue in New York City. The services are really, really great, and Rabbi Oren has done a great job teaching myself and Malachi and Chana and the others that help lead this style of service leading. We're a community in need of new members, and as such, this is a huge plus for us to be able to have such an innovative style of Shabbat observance. We just need to get the word out to people that it exists here in Elmira. I say these things because I think this is something those who are still needing comfort from the loss of what once was can find comfort in. Folks can take pride in what we have built here and know that we are strengthening the Jewish identity of our region. So I will leave you with some words from Midrashim I've learned and a few challenges. I have paraphrased this story, but it comes from Pesikta de Rav Kahana 19:4, Rav Abba Bar Kahana in the name of Rabbi Yohanan, a piece of Midrash that I studied at Yeshiva last month. And just a little backstory before I get into the story here from the Midrash. Back in the time that I'm about to speak about, when Jews got married, the ketubah was actually signed a year before the marriage was actually consummated. And that was to give the husband time to prove that he had the ability to care for his wife. So the story goes, a king married a woman, and after signing the ketubah, he left to a faraway land by the sea. And he didn't come back for many years. He promised the bride many lavish things and a life of luxury in the ketubah that they had signed together, and she devoted herself to the king and waited. For years and years her friends would come to her and tell her to give up on the king and find another man so she could have a family while she was still young and able. She continued to wait, finding comfort in reading the ketubah her and her husband had signed together. After many years, the king came back and found his bride still waiting for him. He poured riches on her and wondered how she waited so long. She told him that she found comfort in reading their ketubah whenever things got hard, and it was only that which kept her from giving up hope. The rabbi said that just as the bride in the story had her ketubah, we have our Torah to give us comfort. We must cling to it and study it in order to find comfort in those times we are not in a spiritual moment communing with God. Torah study, in my opinion, beyond text study, means a genuine commitment to the Jewish community through praying together, eating together, working together, volunteering together, studying together, and just being together. I have 2 challenges for you all. The first is to get more involved in this community. Even if you already feel like you basically live here, as I know I sometimes do, push yourself to do a little more. It is so worth it. The more time we spend together in community, the more people walking in off the street will leave feeling like they belonged here. My second challenge is bring people from off the street. Maybe not literally, but if you know someone who is a member and only really comes a few times a year, bring them to a Friday night service, movie night, adult education class. Make it an outing and help some of our members become more involved. They aren't all that religious? That's fine. Some of our best Talmud learners are not into prayer, but find deep fulfillment in other Jewish aspects of communal life, like studying together. Know anyone who is Jewish and not affiliated? Do the same thing. Invite them for our monthly Friday Shabbat dish to pass. Have them over for a Shabbat meal at your house. It doesn't have to only happen inside the synagogue. And it doesn't have to be super formal. As I was writing this, I actually thought of a third challenge to present to you. And I think this is one of the most important things any of us can do. If you do not already, have some sort of Shabbat practice at your home each week. Light the candles, maybe just have a sip of wine or a few glasses. Do one thing, or do it all, or do something in between. Make it your own, but do it. While we are focused on attracting new membership, we must not lose sight of doing Jewish ourselves. When you make choices such as what you eat, where you shop, or how you get there, are you doing it from a Jewish perspective? I bet you make these choices without even thinking about it most of the time. Take time to pause and recognize our shared values in your day-to-day lives. Do you bring your own bags to the store to cut down on plastic waste? Jewish. Do you help out your neighbors when they need a hand? Jewish. Do you give to local charities knowing it's strengthening our entire community? Jewish. It's so very important for our Jewish involvement to start with ourselves and in our home lives, and not to discredit that. So again, 3 challenges for everybody watching this video and all the membership of our community. First, get more involved yourself in prayer services, in volunteering, in taking a class, whatever it is. Come to the synagogue often and give of your time and commune with the rest of the community. It is so fulfilling and will definitely add something to your life. Second challenge, bring somebody to a service, bring somebody to a class, invite somebody over to your home for a Shabbat dinner. Whether they're members that maybe come once or twice a year, and get them more involved, show them, how this community has grown and what we have to offer them. Or if it's somebody that is Jewish but isn't affiliated with the community, bring them over for a Shabbat dinner to the synagogue or to your house. And the third challenge, if you don't already have a Shabbat observance in your home on a weekly basis, institute some kind of observance, whether it's lighting candles, having a sip of wine, buying a special, loaf of bread, buying a challah, and sharing that at your Friday night family dinner, having a game night. It doesn't have to be a ritual experience with Hebrew and prayers. It can be whatever you want to make it, as long as you're taking time out and recognizing this space called Shabbat. So I encourage everybody to try one or all 3 of these challenges as you go on throughout the time we have up until the high holidays here and throughout the rest of your lives. I think it will really help to make our community a better and more thriving place, more so than it already is. So with these things in mind, if you have any other questions about my trip, I'm happy to talk more about it anytime. Just send me an email or come up to me and ask me anytime at the synagogue. Thank you all so much for the donations to Congregation Kol Ami and the Jewish Center and Federation for their scholarships, as well as a scholarship from the Penn York Jewish community of the Sayre, Waverly, and Towanda area. And to all the individuals that donated to my GoFundMe, I can't give you my thanks enough. And especially to Rabbi Oren for encouraging me to take this step and to go on this trip. I learned so much and had one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and I thank all of you.